Hey guys, it's Shooting Fire. In this video, we're going to discuss the 5 major financial expenses that are keeping Americans in the poorhouse. These areas are essentially the bulk of where our expenses come from. So if we can get a handle on these areas, we can set our financial independence journey on the path to success. Now the potential of this is for this to set our financial journey on the trajectory of such growth that it could help our family for more than one generation. So what are these 5 areas? Well, they are housing, transportation, food, healthcare, and education. So let's take a look at these areas and see how the average American has done in 2017 according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And for each of these, we're going to give you an idea what we're doing so you can kind of compare and see maybe what works and what doesn't. So number 1 is housing. Now for us, this includes things like utilities, mortgage, taxes, and insurance. So what did the average American spend in 2017? Well, they spent close to $1,600 a month, or roughly $19,000 a year on housing. Now you may say, okay, well, we rent. And realistically, the renting numbers, they look a little bit better, but they're close to the same thing. But to compare apples to apples, we're going to look at housing from this angle. So what do we spend per month? Well, we spend about $675 a month on housing. And this comes out to just over $8,000 a year. Now you may ask, okay, well, how'd you do this? So what we did is we bought a house that was $70,000. Now where our culture may go and buy a house for $150,000, maybe $200,000. In fact, we were pre-approved for over that. Ultimately, we were concerned about functionality, and we didn't take any cuts on size. Now what we did take some cuts on is age of the house and location. So what this means is we'll likely have a lot of projects on our hands over the next few years. And in fact, we've already had to replace the roof and the windows. But saving $10,000 a year on average, these projects have already paid for themselves in our situation. So what's next? Well, for number 2, we have transportation. So for this, we're going to consider the cost of the vehicle, insurance, gas, and your kind of normal repairs. So not considering rentals or other modes of transportation, the average American spends just over $500 a month on their vehicles. So what do we spend? So it turns out in 2018, we spent just under $250 a month on our vehicles. So how did I arrive at this number? So we paid for our 2 vehicles in cash, and they've been running for us for just about 11 years. So what I did is I took the initial cost of those vehicles and I spread them out over the 11 years, and that's how we got the $250 mark. Realistically, we're spending less than this a month. So what this means is our 2 vehicles, which are both 2007 vehicles, they cost us less than $8,000 in cash. So how do we do this? Well, one of our vehicles cost around $6,000, and the other 2. One vehicle we have, it's a small car. It's a Toyota Yaris, and can be kind of inconvenient at times. And the other, Chevy Equinox. A bit expensive to maintain compared to the Yaris, but at the price point that we got it for, we couldn't argue. So we've got some utility with some extra repairs required, but we also have a car that's a little inconvenient to use at times with a family of 3. But the point here is we're paying half the national average and saving $3,000 a year for a little bit of inconvenience. Now I must confess, with my job situation, we rarely ever use 2 cars a week. So what this means is when it comes to evaluating areas that we're cheating on financial independence, having 2 vehicles is one of them. Basically, we could be doing much better and probably lower that monthly cost to under $200. So what about food? Now with this, we're going to look at eating out and groceries. The average American in 2017 spent $644 on food, and this was split about 60% with groceries and 40% eating out. So what did we spend a month? We spent about $375 a month on food. And we were split about 70-30 with groceries compared to eating out. Now this is an area we could drastically improve. And what you're going to see each month is the areas that we cheated, and you're going to see how much they cost us each month, and also how much that could have grown had it been invested. So essentially, compared to the average American in 2017, in 2018, we saved $275 on food. So how do we do this? Well, we have a local grocery store that the produce, it may be limited at times, but have pretty good sales. So what about healthcare? Well, here, I was a bit surprised because the average American spent $284 a month on healthcare. I suspected this to be pretty high, but keep in mind, this does not consider healthcare costs. but even that was around $410 a month. So what do we spend in healthcare a month? Well, the answer is a bit convoluted, but essentially for our healthcare plan, which is a high deductible plan, we spend $143 a month. Now granted, this is not something everyone's going to have access to because it's something that is provided through our employer. But what this allows us to do is invest in an HSA, which is only for high deductible plans. So what this means is we can put up to $6,900 towards our HSA, which is money that's put into an account that a large majority of you can actually invest in the market. And this money essentially has a triple tax benefit. What that means is you don't pay the taxes going in, you don't pay the taxes on the growth, and when you use it for medical expenses, you don't pay the taxes on that either. Now why did we go with this plan? Well, with my employer, when you do the math, you actually can't win out on the low deductible plan. And what I mean is when you consider the extra cost for the low deductible plan, given the same set of scenarios, and they could be whether you pay out nothing or if you hit your max in both plans, we ended up being way ahead in every scenario, and yet we get to use that investment vehicle as well. Now a bit of a disclaimer here, this is not something that everybody's going to have access to, but most people are actually paying into a high deductible plan anyway, and they have the ability to use an HSA, but they're currently not. Now this is a very powerful tool, and we'll have another video in the future dealing with more of the specifics and details. So that brings us to number 5, and that is education. Now, education actually isn't the average top 5 expenses for most American families. But we've added it in here because those who are paying for education, it ends up being one of their top 5. And that happens to be us. So last year I finished a master's degree, and my wife is still finishing her degree, and she's got another year to go. So in 2016, the average graduate with a degree had $37,000 of debt from their student loans. So this contributed to an average payment a month of $350 towards education. So what did we pay in 2018? Well, we averaged $420 a month for education. Now you may say, wait a minute, everything else you were paying about half the national average. However, education, you're paying an extra $70. What we have to consider is those who are paying for education, that $4,200 a year average for the average American, that is mostly payments. But for us, that $5,000 that we're paying is actually cash payments for the degree itself. What that means is, by the time my wife finishes her degree next year, that monthly payment's gone. They may have another 8, 10, or in some cases 20 more years to go of that $350 payment. Now the interest rates on student loans are not like our mortgages of 2 to 5% as of late. So what this means is if you're not on some kind of student loan forgiveness program, you're in big trouble when it comes to financial independence. Now this is something that should be taken pretty seriously, and we'll address this in future videos. So in summary, these 5 areas in 2017 cost the average American over $40,000. Not including their other expenses, they're already way above the $25,000 goal that we've listed for this channel. So what about us? Well, we are already over $22,000, so that means we have less than $3,000 of wiggle room. Now we've mentioned some areas in which we can improve, and over time, we're going to evaluate how we might improve in those areas to help us reach that goal. So what's the big deal? The average American, they're spending $40,000 in these areas. Well, the average American is living paycheck to paycheck. The average American doesn't have a lot of hope for their growing net worth. The average American can't provide for their family generationally. So the point is, if you don't want to be the average American, you've got to make extraordinary decisions when it comes to these areas. And ultimately, improvements in these areas are going to make a big difference down the road. And I hope you like this video, and I hope you can see that if you could just take at least one of these areas and address them, that ultimately it's going to have a big impact in your life. Now if you'd like to see more videos like this, or to learn about how maybe you don't have to be enslaved to the workforce for the next 45 years, please leave a comment, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.